Hello everybody. Do you guys want to hear some in-universe trivia and lore for characters in a video game? Oh, of course you do. Did you know Walter is hinted at being the eldest of the kid characters in the game? A lot of people already headcanon this with his behaviour and attitude, but if you were to inspect a fire staff as him, he'll say that he needs to keep it away from the younger kids. And Willow. So I think this is the best evidence you'll get for Walter being the eldest and most responsible kid out of the bunch. Also, completely unrelated, but if you look at his quotes for the football helmet and fuel site club, you'll also learn that he's apparently terrible at sports. Good to know. From one Canadian to the next, we have Woody. A common bit of lore about this guy is his irrational hatred of birds, where he has nothing but disgust to say about pretty much every avian in the game. Except Packin' Baggins from Shipwreck, whom he tolerates. But something you probably didn't know about Woody is that he's one of the few confirmed religious people in the game, where he admits it's been a while since his last confession whenever he sees a clockwork bishop. But what would he have been confessing? Maybe a gambling issue that he once had, if his quote for the Jimbo machine is anything to go by. But now it's time I give you some cold, hard facts. Wartox came from an egg. Yeah. So if you inspect the lava tooth, which is the thing the extra adorable lava follows around, the, weird pet that you sometimes get from the dragonfly, Wartox will say that his mother still has his. The lava tooth is meant to be a reference to an egg tooth, which is a tooth or sometimes an appendage, which is used by egg-laying animals to help them crack out of their egg when they are born. This means that Wartox's race of impish creatures are egg-laying, and that also means that Wartox has
a single opening, called a cloaca.
Maxwell is scared of chairs. A pretty irrational thing to be afraid of, but when you consider the fact that he was stuck on the Nightmare Throne for God knows how many years, I think sitting down on the chair is the last thing he would want to do, if his quotes are anything to go by. Doubly so for the Nightmare Saddle. Honestly, when he rides a beefalo with the Nightmare Saddle, he should just start panicking and screaming to get down as he gets vivid, horrible flashbacks to being bound to the Nightmare Throne for however many years it may have been. Or just lose a tiny bit of sanity. The nature around Webber's whole, situation is a mystery I really need to decode for its own video. But one thing we can learn about the strange spider child is that whomever is doing the talking mentions a voice in their head whenever they talk about the Warbis helmet. This could mean that the spider part of Webber has their own thoughts and words rattling around in the boy part's brain, or Webber doesn't know what thinking is. I like to say it's the spider's thoughts coexisting among the child's, creating a complex psychology that manifests in whatever this weird Wagstaff-induced experiment created. And one of those parts of the brain is really good at reading. My vote is on the spider part. Wilson finds smooth stone seductive. That's it. I could mention that Wilson had a nanny or possibly some medical experience, but instead I will mention that he makes cut stone seductively smooth. In his own words, that is. What does this even mean, Wilson? In what instance are smooth rocks seductive? Like a nice marble sculpture? You pest. But don't tell Willow any of that, because she wants to make a stone butt whenever she puts cut stone on a potter's wheel. It perfectly captures Willow's personality, I'd say. However, if you decide against making a giant butt statue and instead a Frostjaw statue instead, Willow will mention that it reminds her of her old neighbourhood. Either she lived among buff, 10-foot tall, hot shark dudes, or, going off Frostjaw's quotes and mannerisms, New York or maybe somewhere in the New England area. It would totally explain how Willow was able to burn Wickerbottom's library. She was just local to the area. Speaking of Wickerbottom's library, it's Wickerbottom time. She dislikes spicy food. Simple as. Her quotes for spicy pepper poppers, chili flakes, and spicy chili all allude to the fact that this old girl isn't a big fan of the more spicy food. Shouldn't be too much of a surprise since she's already a bit picky about eating food past its expiration date, which to be fair isn't really picky eating and a totally rational thing to not want to do, but it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Eat those moldy berries. But a character that'll gladly eat those moldy berries? WX78. Now, whilst I have an entire video about them in the works, about their origin, who Woodrow is, and how their biology could even work, for now, I'll just tell you that it was most likely Winona that helped build Jimmy for WX, as evident by Wickerbottom's quote for Jimmy. Love how Winona has been seen on several occasions helping everyone's favourite genocidal robot, be it fixing their empathy module situation or building a drone to scan for data. On the topic of Winona, we got a zesty one for you. So, if Winona is able to inspect a roasted toma root, she'll mention that she prefers them fried and green. Quite a few people at home know what I'm about to talk about. This isn't a weird Dr. Seuss reference or anything, but instead a reference to the novel Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe by Fanny Flagg. What a name. It's a story about the blossoming relationship between two women. Now, one of the key themes around such a story is the relationship between the two characters. Whilst in the story the two are never explicitly stated to be lesbians, the story is pretty much about lesbianism. Now I want you to draw the conclusion as to why Winona would reference the lesbian almanac in her quotes, and especially since the book didn't even exist when DST takes place, due to the book being published in the 1980s, over 60 years after DST takes place. Well, I think we know what Clay was implying when they wrote this quote, don't we? Anyway, on the topic of lesbians, let's talk about Wigfrid next. We all know her big strong act permits her from eating any non-meat, or well, more importantly, non-plant-based food, except candy. But that doesn't mean the girl still doesn't like certain veggie foods. Big example? Popcorn. She loves the smell of it, but still refuses to eat it. I wonder what other food she's a big fan of but is forced to not eat due to her delirious stage performer state. Next, let's talk about Wolfgang. Besides him having an ambiguous origin from some/every European country in the world, he also has some interesting lore about his uncle. Yes, when you inspect a mosquito as Wolfgang, he'll say that it reminds him of his uncle. Is this implying that Wolfgang's uncle was annoying, a bloodsucker, a parasite, a literal bug? Maybe if we inspect the mosquito sack we'll get some more clarity. How does Wolfgang knows what his uncle's guts look like? Does Wolfgang have some weird morbid lore surrounding his uncle getting disemboweled or murdered? Oh, the plot thickens. Let's talk about someone less potentially messed up. Wanda. I'm gonna be real, I really struggled with Wanda, since she barely references any personal lore or backstory in any of her quotes. The best I could find after scouring all of them over and over is a point I missed in my How Were They Tricked video. I mentioned that Wanda never made a deal with Maxwell and just girlfelled her way into the Constant, but that was only half of the story. I did forget a key quote, her quote for the Gestalt, where she asks, would making a deal with another mysterious entity be pushing her luck? This means that she probably made a deal with someone on the shadow side in order to get her evil timepieces in the past. Was it Maxwell? Maybe the weird Shadow Watcher guy? Perhaps it was Tenebrow themselves. Anyway, now it's time for words. We're not going to have much lore and backstory for her, as I already did an entire video about that. So instead, let's go over some backstory from her time with the survivors. If you inspect Woody's wooden walking cane, wow that's a mouthful, Wirt will say that Wicker Lady said it's for walking, not poking, Wendy. Oh, I love that so much. Never change Wirt. Speaking of Wendy, let's talk about Wendy. For her lore-based trivia, we're going to look at some quotes for unused content. Specifically, the quote for something called a shadow dancer. From what I can gather, this is an unused quote that characters would have used if they were to inspect one of Maxwell's shadows dancing, but since you can't even inspect shadow creatures, except shadow worms, the quote remains unused. The biggest evidence I have for this is Maxwell's quote for the shadow dancer. But Wendy's quote for it is that father used to do silly dances just like that. Considering the shadow dancer is a potential Maxwell shadow, and how Maxwell, formerly William Carter, is Jack Carter's brother, Wendy's dad, you can see why Wendy would draw a parallel like that. But it's also cute to know that Wendy's dad did silly dances. Oh. I almost didn't include Wes in this video since the man has no backstory other than French, so I'm just going to mention that Wes's abduction is the sole reason crows are in the Constant, as Maxwell, the former ruler of the place, never knew how they got here originally. But if you are to rewatch Wes's animated short, which I know a lot of you do, you can see that they get pulled into the same portal Wes failed his way into. No idea about how the giant crow people that turn up with the carnival got here though, maybe Charlie made them. or they're from a different realm entirely. Wormwood, just like Wirt, has no real backstory as a constant-born creature, since, they fell from a moon and were born yesterday, so I'm going to give you some lore about their time with the survivors. Wormwood says that the Warbis headgear reminds him of WX-78, saying it's just like a robot friend. Oh. He also references them again for the Nautopilot, saying that his robot friend doesn't like pool rock, which, to be fair, WX-78 absolutely does not like the pool rock. But it's adorable that Wormwood remembers and cares about the empathetic murderous drone. But now it's Wally time. Get your napkins ready. So we know the guy misses his mother, Angeline, so dearly, so much, that a lot of the stuff in-game reminds him of her. But more notably for this video, his quote for the picnic casket. He mentions that she loves picnics. A brief moment like that where Wally loses hope that Angeline lost who she was due to her dementia, before he assures himself that she still loves those picnics deep down. But if you were to inspect a deck of cards, he just says that Angeline used to love her cards. Only this time, he didn't correct himself by saying that she still loves them. Poor guy. Let my man out of the constant, he's done literally nothing wrong. But for someone who has done everything wrong, Robert Wagstaff. Oh, this horrible evil man. Stole belongings from people stuck in a collapsing building and would gladly let someone die to steal a projector. But some lore about his past? In his youth, he was a snake oil salesman, which you can find out if you inspect snake oil. A snake oil salesman is someone who would peddle miracle cure tonics to sick and desperate people who needed a cure to whatever malaise they had. Of course, these tonics would do absolutely nothing, and it was all a huge scam that preyed on vulnerable people. Wagstaff was gladly one of those people that would perform these scams. As we've also seen in the latest animated short, Wagstaff is not a good person. Man would gladly throw a ghost child in that big looking furnace thing, I swear. And finally for this video, we're going to talk about Charlie. Been a while since I've mentioned her in a video like this. If you were to inspect the playbill for The Doll as Wilson, you'd see that it is written by the initials CW. And as the player is a one-to-one parallel of the story of Charlie, even straight up confirmed by the other survivors as being created by her, it's safe to imply that whatever Charlie's full name is, she does not break the rule of every character in the game having a W as the first letter in one of their names, which in her case would be her surname. Now I brought this up a while ago in a previous video, but I always said that this lore was ambiguously canon at best, since the playbill was a pseudo-unused item that would only spawn with glitches. However, nowadays, with the addition of the second play, the pull, you get by wearing a void mask near the stage, you can finally swap out the playbills, making the playbill for the doll an obtainable item in regular gameplay, making it 100% canon that Charlie's surname ends in a W. And that's that for some random lore and backstory for every character in Don't Starve Together. It's very fun going over all of their quotes and seeing some underappreciated backstory and lore. Thank you all so much for watching and enjoying silly videos. Let me know if you want me to cover the solo DLC characters. I didn't cover them in this video since there's really not much to talk about with their backstories, as the DST cast are usually way more developed. But if you know of any backstory, do let me know down below. But for now, I hope you all have a lovely day. Take care everybody, bye bye.